every week.
Like live to the internet? I don't know where we go live, actually.
I think it's pronounced live, actually.
Live. We're going live.
Yeah.
We are on the internet. Okay, Willis says we're live.
Ahoy, hoy.
I don't see it on YouTube. Hello.
Oh, I see us.
Oh, there we are.
Oh, there we are.
I'm turning it off so we don't kill the Wi-Fi.
Oh, good. Oh, and I didn't mute my...
Oh my goodness, Adam, every week.
Every week. Hello, everybody. We're here. We're not only live on the internet, we're live from GDC, the Game Developers Conference.
Yeah, we're good to
what?
That's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
It's like here in Frisco, good to just like every March.
Good old Frisco. Everybody calls it Frisco
People
out
love
here.
Frisco.
Yeah. We're hanging out. We're going to talk about games, and so we were like, okay. Well, if we're going to talk about games, then we should probably get a professional game developer on. So you're the one who drew the short straw.
Yeah, I somehow fit the bill on that one.
Welcome to the show, Theo.
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually said it on your business card when I looked. It said professional
game developer-ish.
Yeah. Perfect. No.
Does it say ish on the card?
Yeah,
that's very good.
Yeah.
Very modest for a game developer.
Well, welcome. We're welcome to the pre-show.
Yeah.
This is where we're just hanging out with all the hardcore fans.
Making sure
they've been waiting
works.
for us. Yeah. And yeah, we're live. The Ziv, we got Matt, we got Bambi Sparkles, Murray's Tech Time, great name.
The thing. Can we do some inside baseball on GDC here for a minute?
Yeah, let's do it.
I think the thing that people don't realize about GDC is 70% of business that happens here, I think happens in the park above the convention center.
Oh,
the convention center, because the convention center is underground. Mostly,
yeah.
And above it, there's a really nice green space. It's between Yerba Buena Arts Center and the Metreon, which is where the Microsoft store and the PlayStation store used to be, but now it's a movie theater and a food court and a Target, I think. But there's this really nice green space there, and a million nerds this week are hanging out and catching up with old friends, and you see handshake deals happening, and it's
yes.
Yeah.
Somebody's like, oh hey, I got this idea for a game. Do you want to give me money for this?
A little bit harder
game?
than that, it turns out.
Oh, I thought it was that easy.
No, it's kind of like that. Yeah,
It's
There's money is just raining down.
Wait,
Really?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of being here, you could be out there just
I didn't
catching
have
all the
enough
money.
room in my pockets anymore.
Okay.
It's just,
you forgot to pack.
Yeah, all
pockets.
those headlines, they're all fake. It's just everyone is just rolling in the cash.
Oh yeah. It's like you go out and the publishers are like, hey, we've got one of those showers with the fan on the bottom, and the money just comes in.
Actually, I did have one publisher going like, can you find me someone that has a really good game for retail? I'm like, huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
You should get on that.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
because you're professional.
I'm a ish.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, the gardens. You say, okay, let's go meet at the stage or the waterfall.
Yeah.
You have the little nicknames of different parts of that
There's
green
the
space.
upstairs area with the cover for the fair skin. Folk.
What about the not the Ferris wheel, the merry-go-round?
Is it merry? Oh, the carousel. That's on the other side.
Carousel.
That
doesn't work over there.
count. No.
See, I would want to meet over by the.
I mean, we can go ride the carousel ponies later if you want.
That's where the best business deals happen. We're here. We're going to talk about game dev stuff. This is the name of the game. We're here at GDC, not to be confused with GTC, which is also going on right now.
40 miles that way.
Some way down in South Bay. So NVIDIA has GTC going on down there. GDC, NVIDIA also shows up too, and we're actually in their booth right now. So thank you to them for letting us park in here. This is kind of fun that we're the first time we've ever been live at GDC.
Really?
So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. We're taking the show on the road. Actually, the road wasn't too far. It was literally just
you walked over, I think.
No, not with all the gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Willis, manning the
Willis is very
verticals and
strong.
horizontals. Hey, Willis is strong, but I mean that's a lot of gear.
Look, that's a
and
big
you didn't
light.
offer to help, so
I rode BART today because parking was $40 yesterday.
oh.
I was like, that's too expensive.
$40
for parking.
for parking.
Yeah. Street parking was $40.
American dollars.
U.S. dollars, yes.
Yeah, not like the Canadian funny money.
Well,
Actually, what do Canadians use? I don't know.
loonies, of course.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they're still
perfect.
dollars.
Oh,
Canadian
perfect. Okay.
pesos, actually. Thank you very much.
What, half, 3/4 now? I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When I was in Canada in December, I was really excited because I was like, oh, wow. Everything, this isn't. This is, everything's so inexpensive and reasonable. It's like going back in time 5 years.
Yeah.
But by the way, Falcon Northwest is in the chat, and I can confirm that Falcon Northwest machines are powering all the demos going on here. Yeah, I walked in the room and I was like, oh, okay, this is what Kelt's been up to.
Yeah.
Building a lot of PCs for NVIDIA demos. So yes, so we do have. You can literally see 2 of them back there on the kind of a little bit. It's a little dark. Those are the Talons. Yes.
Is it still they have the Mach 5, the Talon, the Frag Box? Is that still what?
Fragbox Tiki,
The
Talon.
Tiki, yeah.
I don't know if the Mach 5 is still around.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I looked at the.
Well,
the
yeah,
site.
Falcon's in the chat. You can ask him. Are you specifically asking to bring back the Mach 5?
I would like growing up. I'd go to the website and be like, oh yes, please, I want one of these.
Nice, love it. Yeah, awesome systems. Anyway, how are things looking on the verticals and horizontals, Willis? Looking good? Thumbs up from everybody. And this podcast isn't AI generated, but yeah, we should have thought of that.
That'd been a lot easier.
Yeah.
Just
Well, I
take the
mean,
warning
we've
off.
got all the hardware back there. Could have done it. Yeah, cool. Should we start the show? Yeah. I will mention for people who are watching later, or watching us live, we will hopefully have another guest to be
guest.
joining us.
Second guest.
Yeah. You
Fourth
know,
seat.
maybe in like over
I'd say
half an hour.
49 minutes
Yeah.
ish.
So, yeah,
Ish.
I'm excited. So but we'll hold down the fort till they get here.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. We already have Phil in the chat that says the guest has the best radio voice ever.
Oh,
Look at that.
thank you.
Yeah, there
I
you
told
go.
you Theo had a good voice.
Yeah, his name's Theo.
We'll do a
Yeah.
real introduction here in a minute. It's we're very sneaky.
All right, cool.
You ready for me to do my part?
Willis, are you ready? Ready. Yeah. Okay. Everybody ready? Then,
Ready.
Yeah. Let's do it. Okay. Perfect. And cut. Just kidding.
This episode is sponsored by NVIDIA GeForce. NVIDIA has just released RTX Remix, an open source tool for making incredible graphics mods that was in beta until now. RTX Remix allows experienced modders to create RTX mods that breathe new life into classic games. If you're a modder, check out the link in the description to learn more about RTX Remix and start creating stunning RTX remasters today. If you're a gamer, the Half-Life 2 RTX Remix demo is now available on Steam, so you can see this tech come to life.
In this episode of The Full Nerd, we talk about game development and how consoles are obviously inferior to PCs. And welcome to episode 340. That checking my notes said is correct of the Full Nerd Podcast, which is the premier podcast of the mildest hot takes on the internet about PC news. I am your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray, but I am not alone. I have one Will Smith to my left, usual, guest. I don't know if you're a guest.
Am I the second seat or the third? I don't know. I'm here.
Yeah, you're here.
I'm beardy and I'm wearing a shirt.
But more importantly, we're here live at GDC for the very first time. I went on the street and I found a professional game developer. So please, Theo, tell us, who are you?
I'm a professional game developer.
Oh, perfect.
Found on the street of Gdańsk.
Gdańsk.
Yeah. So what's your studio? What did?
Yeah, we're a small team of 8 people.
Mm-hmm.
The studio's name is called Goose Bite.
Like a goose bites you?
Yeah,
Oh,
like a goose
that's
bites
mean.
you, but with a BYT
It's
because
computer bite.
that's a computer bite. Yeah.
Oh,
'Cause
that's smart.
play on words is my thing, I guess.
Okay. Have you ever been bitten by a goose?
No, but my dad had a goose in the backyard.
Really?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
a pet?
Well, it was like a wild goose, but it would just kind of hang out and get fed by my dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of people befriending crows before, but never geese. Geese are
it was
enemies to men usually.
no, it was a friendly goose to him, but no one else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, luckily so far you haven't been mean and you haven't bit anybody
No,
that I've
not
seen
yet,
at
not
least.
yet.
Yeah.
The
Well,
GDC is not over.
yeah, GDC's not over. The show just started. We will have hopefully another guest joining us a little bit later. They actually had real business to do, and I was like, hey, after that, maybe pop by. So we'll see. I'll hold on for the surprise for that. But yeah, we're here live at GDC. Not only that, we're at NVIDIA's suite here at GDC. So GDC stands for Game Developers Conference, not to be confused with GTC, which is also happening in the Bay Area, but that's in South Bay. We're in San Francisco proper. So have you been to a GTC before?
I went to the first one, I think, yeah.
And what's the difference between GTC and GDC?
Well, one is about game development and one is about graphics technology and like GPU compute stuff now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're here at the Game Developers Conference because we like talking about games.
Because we talk about consumer stuff. We talk about stuff that people buy and put in their computers at home. And at this point, the GTC seems like it's more of a, hey, I'm doing research or AI stuff or not necessarily the kind of stuff that normal humans do with their computers.
So important business.
The most serious business.
They didn't invite us down there, so
But they invited us down there. They would have had us down there.
No, this is going to be fun. I want to hear straight from the horse's mouth about game developing, and you're here on behalf of all game developers.
No, that's worth the.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Every single one.
Yeah, every single one. I'm kidding. You have your own studio. You can talk about your experiences. Obviously you've worked in game dev, Will. So I've got questions. Hopefully people in the chat have questions about game development. But yeah, let's dig into it. The first topic is just generally about game development, and not talking about console versus PC. We'll get to that one. I'm excited to talk about that as well. But so game development. I think we were talking a little bit before the show started, and I want to start here. Like, do you feel like, Theo, I'm looking at you, do you feel like people misunderstand what it takes to make a game? Like, I have no idea. I mean, I kind of do a little bit behind, like I've been to GDC plenty of times that I get a sense of it. But usually it's like a thing arrives on Steam and it's just magic. It's somehow somebody put it together and I just get to play it.
Yeah, I mean, games scale so much from the solo developer with a couple of other people that contribute with music or art to the 1,200 person teams that churn things out across 12 different studios.
Ooh. So you're saying Balatro to Assassin's Creed, basically the same thing.
I mean, basically, yeah. Somebody just does a design document and hits up makegame.ai.
Yeah.
And then out it comes. But no, it's the amount of like moving parts to make a game, whether it's a smaller one or a bigger one, are just insane. And everything depends on everything else. And every single time you have an idea of something, it's going to impact something else. So nothing ever comes out the way you expect it to, is what I'm saying.
Well, I think one of the things that people have misconceptions about is, a lot of people talk about game engines, so Unreal and Unity and Godot, and there's a bunch of options now in the space. Yeah, exactly. And then there's also the proprietary stuff that like Ubisoft and EA has Frostbite, Ubisoft has Snowdrop and something else. I think people assume when they hear that there's a game engine, there's technology that makes it easier to make games. I think there's a gap between what you actually get with the game engine, which is frameworks that make it kind of easy to start stuff.
An interface, basically.
Yeah.
To get,
But it's not like when you download shooter.exe for UE5, it's at most you have like an avatar in a space with basic physics, and then you have to build out everything around that, including stuff like collision and lighting and like you're literally just starting at a tabula rasa pretty much, right?
Yeah. And then just because you did a game on an engine doesn't mean it's going to be the exact same experience the next time, because there are new features, there's new bells and whistles. All of a sudden you've got Lumen. Oh, cool, let's do that one.
Yeah.
What does that do to my performance? How does that work? Like everyone's discovering at the same time, like the impact of the various parts of any one specific engine. And you have to be wary about when do you upgrade your engine from 5 point
Never
whatever to
is
5
the answer.
Don't do 5.5.2 ever.
Well, but it's weird because that's a real thing, right? Like there are like 5.3 was a little rough as I recall too, or 5.2.3 maybe I get them mixed up. There's a lot of there's like dependency trees that are nightmarish, because also you're using other middleware, right? Like if you're doing fancy sound, you have Wise, or if you're doing in-game voice, you have Vivox or something like that. And those plugins all have dependencies on what versions they work with, and you can make a seemingly simple decision on one thing and then
Yeah, yeah.
It's all just easy, right?
Yeah, but it's not just limited to what engine do you use. It's also like how do you organize your work, right? It's like if you have a team, you wanna make sure that they're not wasting time on silly things. So you might be like, okay, well, let's not wear the IT hat a bunch of times, like for each person once a week because there's a password problem or whatever. So you go with a single sign-on solution for stuff, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, the way I do my task tracking or the way I do my source control management or whatever it is, like each piece of software and each piece of like each service that you choose has to play well together and create like a little ecosystem. So oftentimes like you'll talk with other developers and be like, well, what are you using for X or Y or Z? And no studio is set up the same ever.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's a real problem, right? Because you have art like
Yeah.
if you think about how if you're working on a print product, everybody knows how to use InDesign, right? And InDesign, when you're making a 2D magazine or a book, like laying out pages is laying out pages, and it's style choices that you change between. But like, can you explain how you take a 3D model and make it move and get it into your game, and like this tool chain that has to go. I know you pay the bills for that stuff. I don't know if you've worked in that space so much.
So I'm not the most well versed in the art pipeline.
Okay.
Like the actual like modeling of it and then rigging it and scanning it and getting it into the game. It's gonna it's like the flow of that is typically you're gonna want to have a piece of concept art to know what you want to do.
Something somebody painted or drew.
Or like recently there's a lot of Midjourney also.
Yeah, that's shockingly popular.
So yeah, once you have a concept of what you want to go for, then you'll go with the high poly, and then the low poly on that once you're happy with the high poly.
Somebody's sculpting in like Maya or Blender or 3D
exactly.
Max or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And like the tool set will change from the high poly down to the low poly down to the rigging and animation. Like each one of those is going to be oftentimes a different person and a different tool, and the things that you use in one studio will be different from the other one.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of getting that working, like for me, like whenever I look at the choices that we want to make, it's more about like how do we optimize the flow, and I'll talk to the artists and the programmers and be like, okay, these are the things I want. How do we not waste time reinventing the wheel a bunch of times? So it's like what are the parameters or the conditions that we have to be able to, let's say, retarget an animation that we've already done and have it apply to multiple different models, so we don't have to do it again and again and again. So that's kind of like where I put my focus.
So like if you have like a biped walking animation, for example, you don't need to make 50. You don't need to make those for every monster in the game. You want to have them just on the.
Yeah, but on the flip side, you want more variety.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you lean in too much on the like, let's be cost efficient and be wary that we are a small team, so we can't do GTA level stuff.
Yeah.
You also want to make sure that you don't have a very samey experience. So like the approach is different. So for quadrupeds and bipeds, we'll do an animation set. We'll retarget as needed if there's different sizes. For like bug like things, we'll go we built our own like procedural animation, so that because it's like
they can skitter and
and there you can have a little bit more jank on that when they go up on a cliffside or something like that. So it's okay.
So you're well, and also people generally are better at picking out weird stuff in human-like creatures.
Yes.
Whereas bugs, we're just all used to being skeezed out all the time by bugs.
Yes.
Well, real quick, I want to go back to something because you some people in the chat are asking like, does your studio actually use Unreal? Like, what kind of tools is your studio using?
Yeah, we use Unreal Engine. We're on 5.5 right now. We started off the day after Unreal Engine 5 was officially launched. They had a beta period for a while, and so like our specific studio, we went down the rabbit hole of let's make a procedural engine, like a procedural tool that sits on top of the engine for this big world that we want to make, and we wanted it to be a tool that would be leveraged by artists and designers to make bespoke feeling environments. So not going wide like a No Man's Sky, where it's like, let's make the entire universe with ProcGen, but rather something very, very like confined and small, but dense.
But then you're using that ProcGen world, and then you're building on top of that by hand, right?
Well, yeah, but actually we threw it all out.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
We spent a year on it, and then just looking at what the experience was and what the risks were associated to it, and just the funding landscape also changing. Like, you have to make choices about like what's best for the game and what's best for the studio, and how much of a gamble is each design choice going to be. Is this going to be fun? Can we execute on it? Is it going to be good enough? So we tried that. Then we went to just a regular handcrafted world. But that allows us to actually be a little bit less like abstract about the process, right? When you do ProcGen, you have to do a bunch of rules, and then more rules layered on top of that, and then more rules layered on top of those, and you don't see it all come together until
it's working really well.
Until the tool is done in every single aspect. So it's like, it's a bit scary to be in a black box for too long.
There's a reason Spelunky 2 came out 8 years after Spelunky 1. And it was. I mean, that's a 2D game.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, so when you are funded for your project and you have runway to do something, then you can go do it.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden, say, your investor evaporates, then you have to show what you have to be able to keep the lights on and pay your team members so that they can afford rent and stuff. And if your game is built on theoretical stuff that's going to come together 2 years later, you can't really show stuff to pitch things to then get the funding again, right? So like there's like business realities also.
Well, the thing that surprises me is always how much about, especially indie games. I mean, I assume this scales all the way up to big AAA stuff, is about managing risk.
Yeah.
Because you're building, like, so The Signal, the game you're working on,
Yeah.
is coming out sometime in the not too distant future. No specified date yet, I think, right?
Not announced yet.
But it's you're making decisions based on what you think people are going to be wanting to play and want to buy 1, 2, 3 years in the future.
Yeah.
When you're starting out on this, and that's it's hard to do if you're a giant faceless multinational corporation with a bunch of people in suits that sit down and say, "Oh, here's where the market's going to be in 5 years," and they have spreadsheets.
Well, the giant suits, there's a trick to knowing what they can build.
Okay.
Because those budgets balloon so high, like like $120 million game is like totally par for the course.
Yeah.
If not on the meager side of things, from what I saw before I left those.
Yeah.
Because those risks are so high in terms of the financial amount, the question is very simple. When you have an idea that sounds super cool and you're working in one of those, to get it greenlit, you have to show the example of it somewhere else.
Oh, so they're not going to greenlight. Like
they
if
will
you
never.
say,
They will never greenlight something if you don't have a comparable.
Okay.
So that's why you have the same
Yeah.
over and over again, because
because they're
it's too
pointing to past
expensive.
examples and be like,
it's
oh,
like,
well,
are
we're
you
going to
sure
do like
is
this
gonna
and
work?
this.
Yeah, like it takes some cojones for the suits to bet on something that they haven't seen done somewhere else by somebody else, because they have so much money on the line, right? So it's like, well, are you sure? Like, what do you know? I think like, that other company there that made $500 million in 2 weeks knows a thing or two. Maybe you should think about doing that instead of your idea.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating, right? It's but at the same time, like there's 14,000 games are going to come out on Steam this year or something like that, and
probably more.
Probably more. Yeah, it was 13
It was
something last year.
19,000.
It was 19 last year. I'm
19,000.
sorry. It's I mean, it's an incredibly, the indie space is really competitive, and figuring out how to build something that's going to gain. I mean, obviously. The nice thing about making a game that costs $1 million, a couple $1 million, is that your cost, your success, a really great success, is a lot fewer copies than it is for something like GTA 6.
Yeah.
That they've spent $1 billion making.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, so you would have these things where it's like, oh, a video game industry is bigger than movies, bigger than music, bigger than Disneyland. I don't know, like bigger than everything. But if you break it down, like how much of that money that is used to quantify what the video game industry is in the type of game that you might personally identify as like the thing that you want to play, right? Like the mobile industry is equal to the rest of it, right?
Yeah.
Then within the PC console space, and that's, add VR as well and web and everything else, that like that revenue is dominated by things that released 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 3 years ago, and that have like these forever games.
Fortnite and League of Legends.
Yeah,
and
Rocket League, Fall Guys, etc. So the amount of time people spend on those games, and the amount of money, like revenue that's generated, is quite a lot. If you look back at like, I don't remember exactly what the stat was. It was something like 8% of all money generated in Steam last year was on games that released last year.
Yeah.
So there's 20,000 games, 19,000, sorry. And the pie was like that 8% of the pie went to those. So it's super, super competitive. So even if your game costs $350,000, right? For example, which is like, if you're pitching a game these days as an indie, I would say that would be the sweet spot today.
Something you can make with like three people and some 2 or 3 people and some contractors. Right?
I mean, are you paying yourself? Like, it depends. Yeah, like the amount of money that you have to make back to then be able to continue and iterate and make next games, it's hard to do for everyone. And then there's it's a hit driven business, so everybody's heard of Balatro, right?
Yeah.
And so they did really, really well. Like,
see a lot of card poker with weird meta games on top in the next 2 years.
oh yeah, there's gonna be a lot of fast follows, for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think 90% of all games fail.
Yeah.
In terms of like finances.
Well, and when I'm looking, I'm trying slowly over here on the hotel Wi-Fi, loading up the current top sellers, and it's a Steam sale is going on right now, and the top sellers, Split Fiction and Assassin's Creed Shadows and Repo, which are all relative, and Monster Hunter Rise are all relatively new releases, and everything else on the list: Baldur's Gate, Cyberpunk, Rainbow Six Siege, Helldivers, Ready or Not, Red Dead 2, Ghost of Tsushima. These all came out more than a year or more ago for the most part. So yeah, to your point,
but what is cool is that if you focus on making a good game, do your best, and execute on that, and don't do stupid things that piss people off. There are a lot of different niches that you can explore. There's a lot of different things that you can still, create. You can remix different ideas of things that you thought were cool, and it would be great to like combine. And so I think there is space for it. It's just like, I wouldn't ever recommend someone quit their day job to become a game developer as like a make a living out of it.
What's your full-time job, Theo?
Hey.
Well, so I mean, you're saying all this, and it sounds like it's hell to be a game developer. Like, why do it?
You're always learning. You're always working with people to make some. Well, mostly all the time. There are a few like solo devs that don't, I guess. But no, I enjoy problem solving. I enjoy making things. I enjoy playing video games. That's kind of like.
I've heard of these things.
Yeah.
I should try one out.
And growing up, I was like, what do I do when I grow up? Like, I work at where? I don't know. Like, what's a job?
Actuarial or astronaut. Those are the only two I knew.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Astronaut. I mean, we all wanted to be there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had bad eyes. It turns out they wouldn't accept me.
Oh, dang it.
Yeah. No, I do it because it was a hobby that became something that I just was drawn to, and I have no choice. I'm a prisoner of that.
It's for people who like to have every day be something. I mean, okay, there are definitely jobs inside games that every day is doing the same thing in different variants. Like, shout out to the animators, because I am not a person who's going to make 3,000 hit reactions for a game without going slowly crazy. But some people really love doing that work, and more power to them. I love them for that. But it's really, for somebody like me who's not a technical person, right? I do communication stuff and help people raise money and even do like DevOps stuff sometimes, where I help set up servers that run build pipelines and things like that. There's always something new to learn and do, and that's really satisfying for me personally.
Nice, yeah. I mean, everyone has their expertise, right? I can get it. I guess, do you feel like there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I like games, I can go make a game, and then they realize like, oh, making games is not.
Yeah, but I mean, I think yes. And whenever I became interested in it, I think there was like a school program that allowed for that kind of thing. It was Digipen up in Washington State.
Yeah, I remember that.
It like cost a pretty penny. Now there are like a lot of curriculum offered by different universities and stuff where people can learn, whatever it is that they think that they might be interested in. Oftentimes these programs end with like a 4-month stint where everyone in that program will make a game, right? There's a lot of those 19,000 Steam games, not a lot, but there's a few of those are these student projects where people kind of figure out how to do things, and they take it all the way to completion, right? They'll just be released for free, and then that becomes like a portion of your portfolio.
Or they're on. Some people put them on itch too. Like they.
Oh yeah, itch is huge, and like itch is great for feedback on your game. If you're aspiring to make something for Steam, for example, throw it up on itch. I mean, if you look at like the Raft, that was initially up on itch before it went to Steam for free. Valheim had a alpha up on itch, and they were able to get meaningful feedback.
Well, same thing, like Portal spun out of a thing called Narbacular Drop that was a senior thesis at one of the Northwestern, I can't remember which one, but Kim Swift and those folks made that. And like there's a pipeline for that. I don't think you have to do a dedicated program.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just tinker. You can just download it. It's free.
I guess, but it's also hard because like a game developer can mean so many different things. You talk about how like there's people who you don't want to do animation, but that's technically a game developer. But also the people who do the business stuff, or
but
like,
you can,
a game developer is like such a broad term.
Like if you're looking at like hobby grade game development, to then see if that's something that you want to move into. I mean, there are tons of assets that you can get off of Unreal Engine Asset Store. They rebranded it to something, I forgot what it's called now.
But
or
it's,
the Unity
it's,
Asset
part,
Store.
It's part of the Epic Games Store download. You can
Yeah,
just go to
yeah.
that third page that's like Engine or Create or something.
And there's a bunch that are free. There are some that are like $100 or whatever. And so you can focus on the thing that you want to try out, grab these, and get something functional. Never ship a game that you want to commercialize with these, because they're going to be unoptimized messes that are not, that give your game like a reskin vibe, Well, but like they're good for like cutting the ropes, for prototyping, for learning, shortcuts, right?
That's also part of the pitch for UE5 too, though, is that, hey, we're going to give you like the game automatically. It doesn't exactly work this way, but like theoretically you can bring in these huge, really unwieldy assets from the asset store that are like 3D scans of rock faces or something, right? And they're crazy high poly, and then when UE5 works right, it kind of munges them down so they become game asset sized when you package it up and make a build with it. It's it's like everything. It's a little bit of a mixed bag. Yeah. But there's other tools too, like Game Maker. You can go buy Game Maker on Steam. It's like $50, and it's really good for making.
Is that the 2D one? Yeah, okay.
2D prototypes of stuff. And they have like, even if you don't know how to do code, like the code stuff is very straightforward in that, stuff that even I can do. But you can they also have like a visual scripting language that's kind of like a prototype version of UE's blueprints that lets you have connect nodes to each other and say, okay, if this happens, then do this, and if this happens, then go here, and it lets you build up control schemes and all that kind of stuff. So and then there's a whole world of Godot stuff, which we don't even need to get into.
And I guess there's also the the game creation tool within a game type of thing that you see with like UEFN making a play, so
like mods.
Well,
or is that different?
So UEFN is their hey, we want to build a mode for Fortnite version of the Unreal Editor.
Yeah,
But it's not like Fortnite creative mode.
Well, there's two different. There's two levels. There's like the one that's inside the game, which is Fortnite creative mode, and that's pretty limited. The UEFN, basically, you can build. It's like a stripped down version of what they used to make Fortnite and Lego, the Fortnite Lego stuff.
Yeah, it's still super limited. Like you can't change core 3Cs related things, like the character camera control stuff. It's going to be basically what you get out of Fortnite.
Some of that, so they keep every version, every time they do a new version, they add more stuff. Like I think they have a twin stick shooter template now, right? So it's like you basically you have to start with the templates, and those are going to determine your characters and controls, and then you go from there.
But so if you were curious about it and wanting to know how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Like there are many entry points to doing it, and some will be a little bit more user friendly, but also more limiting in terms of what you can do. And then if you're cool with being get as technical as you want, then just
The neat thing about the mod stuff and the UEFN and even Roblox, God help me for bringing that up. They instead of starting with a blank project like you do with Unreal, where you have to determine how gravity works and how light works and how each gun works. When you do the UEFN stuff, you can import all the Fortnite weapons, and you can make them part of your project for that, right? So you don't have to write guns are one of the things that I think people don't understand is how incredibly complicated something like a gun is, right? It has an animation on the gun. It has visual effects that happens when you shoot the bullet. It has visual effects that happens when the bullet impacts something, and that's often different for a wall or a metal or ground or a person. And then there's sound effects that trigger on all those things. There's controller rumble that happens when you do all of those things. There's camera shake that happens when you do all of those things. There's a little bit of zoom when you move when you're doing slight movements that shift the camera perspective a little bit that people don't register consciously but see. And then when the bullet hits an enemy, it makes sounds. It has animation reacts. So you hit in the shoulder and it moves back. And if you don't do all this stuff exactly right, the feedback you get is, man, the guns in this game suck. and it's that's a cross-disciplinary project that involves your technical artists, your animators, your sound people, your modelers, your game code, multiplayer networking code people, the whole thing that is and it doesn't come together, like Theo said, often until very late in the process.
Ooh, sounds scary.
Or maybe you change your art style to make sure that you don't have too much expectation of realistic reactions on everything.
Yeah.
Go for more of a demake look, and then you can have a few,
fewer
things to worry about because, it's really a matter of what is the vision, what's the capacity in terms of finances and team and what does each person in my team know how to do, right? What can we execute on?
How do you convert money into time?
Yeah, and then what's going to be fun, right?
Yeah.
And but choosing which way to go and then discovering along the way that why did I really push for a flamethrower? That was a bad idea.
Yeah.
And then just kind of figuring out the sunk cost fallacy of it of do I push through or do I make a quick adjustment and cut that out?
Well,
right?
Or is that flamethrower the thing that's going to pop in the trailer and get people really excited about your game because it's a hard thing to do, and people don't see it very often, right? So it's a real it's like you're on an infinite number of tight ropes, and you're every one of them you can fall off of simultaneously. And also you have to get good at doing finances and talking to business people and all this other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to a word that you said, because even if you could do all that, even further, even if you could do all that and you release the game, maybe you start to get comments in the Steam reviews of oh, this game isn't optimized. I feel like that's a hot topic. A lot of people are talking about what does optimization actually mean? Like, and how? I mean, like, do you have how are developers thinking about that?
So you might notice that a lot of Unreal Engine games perform like dog poop,
Okay.
right? Like from smaller teams, right?
Is that because of Unreal specifically? Is that what you're saying?
Unreal is great, but it's new to a lot of people, right? We're still games take years to make, so it's a lot of people's first time with UE5, and there are mysterious options that are on or off or whatever all throughout
hundreds and thousands
so
of them.
many things, and then you'll do something and you're like, why is this behaving this way? What, so like you have to understand what the optimal settings are for various things in terms of like which levers and knobs you turn on and off. They give you a lot of options.
And are you talking about features like graphical features or like physics, like how many models, everything? Okay.
Yes.
Like there will be options. So because these engines are constantly being developed, there's a lot of stuff that the documentation lags the engine. So you'll click on the documentation for a setting or a feature and you'll be like, oh, what does this actually mean? And then you'll get a page that's from I haven't seen a UE3 one in a while, but I've seen a lot of UE4 ones linked from the UE5 engine, right? And you're like, oh, is this still this could just be the same. It could be the same exactly as it's in the documentation. It's correct. Sometimes you then do a little bit more searching. You find like a blog post or a GDC talk where somebody's like, oh, yeah, no, we're completely changing the way this works. It's great on DX10, DX11, DX12 cards. If you're running the DX11 pipeline, it's going to have a negative 30% performance hit. And like there's often the way you find out about that is by sending your build to one of the graphics card vendors and saying, hey, we're having a problem with this card that we have in our studio and happen to be testing, and we don't understand why it's really slow on a 2070 but not a 3070. And then they'll run it through their things and they'll be like, oh yeah, you got too many draw calls here or something, some esoteric that you hand off to the graphics program.
But about optimization, so what do you have to think about? You do need to think about like number of draw calls, right? Like
what's a draw call?
I don't know.
So like in terms of like the way you set up your art pipeline, when you want to render that out, like the stuff that you want to render out, like you need to be cognizant of how it's all built up. Like how many materials and shaders do you have? How many textures are you fitting into that scene? Like if you can have fewer things build out your entire scene, then that's fewer things to draw out.
So like a good example of this is texture atlasing, right?
Yeah.
Where you'll, instead of having 50,256 or 512 by 512 textures, you put all of those on one great big texture at the end. And then you reference a portion of that giant texture when you're saying, hey, I want to texture this thing. So that turns 50,000 draw calls into one draw call that's just then some magic happens in the back end and you just reference the same thing over and over again and it saves a lot of time. But that applies
basically when you know what you wanted, it's okay, so it's messy. In the beginning,
that's game development. It's messy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what I'm learning.
Like at the start, you have an idea. Then you want to prototype that, and you want to do it as cheaply as possible to get to the flavor of what's in your head, and is it actually worth pursuing?
Like, is it fun?
Is it fun? Is my stupid idea gonna be good? So you will cut all the corners and grab things from the asset store and just kind of spaghetti code your way into making that prototype. Then, assuming that you are not super rich somehow, you need to then go find a way to fund that further. The prototype was probably on your bill, right? On your dime. So you'll go and pitch that and you'll show it to people. Then publishers will be like, huh, cool. Can you bring it up to vertical slice? Can you push it further, right? Can I have every single feature that you expect to have in this game done, because they have everyone looking for funding these days, so they're going to minimize their risk and try and get basically a completed game. Then they'll be like, can I also have signal on market fit? how many wish lists do you have? How big is your community? So like there's all these things that you start doing. So you're just developing, and you're on like a race to get the things that you need to fulfill your vision, and you need money for that.
Yeah.
When you finally get to that point, it's like, okay, now I've got this cobbled together monstrosity
Janky mess,
of a game. It sells the vision. I was able to do what I need to do, which is to get more resources to be able to make the game. And so then it's like, depending on how successful you might have been in gathering the necessary time and money for that vision, and how well you estimated that, that's going to dictate how well optimized your game is going to be. Because do you take the time to throw literally everything that you've done out the window and rebuild it in an architecture and in a way that is smart, so that you don't ruin people, like melt people's CPUs and GPUs to run your game? Or are you just kind of building on top of your spaghetti code, building on top of your crappy assets, and trying to just get the game finished? So that's it's an intersection between the means that you have and the I guess the your willingness to throw things out and do it properly.
Because I think one of the things that people maybe don't understand is that the complexity, the fact that computers are lasting longer than they have before. Like when I was working on the Anacrusis, we would get people who had 1060s and 960 cards, like 8-year-old cards at that point, and they'd be like, "Hey man, I'm not getting 120 frames a second on this. Your game, you need to optimize this game better." And we're like, "Man, you're like one of 8 people using that card playing our game from our like telemetry we get. So we're not going to spend time on that." But you do have to like know. I mean, I assume maybe AAA developers have access to like giant testing labs with every GPU and every CPU and all the possible combinations.
Yes.
Yeah, but like indies don't have that, and even when you pay for external testing, the results you get from external testing as an indie are, hey, this is going to prevent you from passing cert on Xbox or PlayStation, not, oh, the number 6 video card on Steam has an enormous performance problem with your game that you're not going to find out until everybody's posting on your Steam forums.
I think everybody should play test though. Like that's what we do.
Play test.
Yeah. That's what we do. Like so, we're a small team. We do what we can with the means that we have, right? And we have some cool ideas that we want to get done. We all have the same to minimize the amount of like headaches on the IT side. We all use the same computer configuration. So at the start, I bought just a bunch of computers with the same specs: i9s, 64 gig RAM, 3700 because it was like 2022.
Yeah.
And so I know exactly how this game performs with that one configuration. I can pull up my Steam Deck, throw it on there. Now I have 2 examples.
Points of interest. Yeah.
That's it. I'm blind. I do not know how it runs on some other configuration because I did not want to deal with something weird and funky happening on one person's device, right?
Yeah.
When they're building things, it's like, oh, why is like my Maya busted? Like, why is this not working? It's like,
you can
if I remove all the like variables, I know I can fix it more quickly. Like we as a team can fix it more quickly.
That's interesting. Okay.
To minimize IT shenanigans, we do that. But because of that, we have fewer reference points on which hardware configurations are going to work well for our team. Unless A, we pay for like some kind of service to have like all these things tested, or B, public playtest early, pre-alphas. Yeah. And
those public playtests, like Steam has good functionality for that now, which is really nice.
Finally.
It took them a long time. The answer used to be to use early access for that, right? So you release your game in early access, and then people are going to tell you what's broken with it. And that was great up until the point that Steam early access, your Steam early access launch became the primary point of promotion that you got inside Steam.
There is also only one launch for your game ever. Like it is extremely rare for your 1.0 to outperform your early access.
It's like you have to have a wildly successful early access like Astroneer or Subnautica or something like that in order for that to land these days.
Well, also like early access, like again, it's a crowded space. So do people really want to get burned again on an early access title that comes out and it's very early, and then the team maybe didn't get enough money to continue development, and then it becomes abandonware. Like people have been burned by that model a bunch of times as players. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It's not what any dev sets out to do.
No,
I mean,
no, no.
I mean, I'm sure somebody does, but generally speaking, you launch into early access because you have a game that's complicated beyond your ability to test internally. Often.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of hardware, I'm going to do a draw call and call in a guest that we have showed up. Why don't you come on down? Is that the correct use of a draw call? Right? I'm
You nailed it. 10 out
Yeah,
of 10.
perfect.
yeah.
This
12
is
out of 10.
exactly.
Yes,
yeah.
and.
So yeah. So please come join us. This is Wes Fenlon from PC Gamer. Hello, Wes.
Hello, panelists. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, we're here. We're talking about games, video games. Do you cover video games at PC Gamer?
A few games.
Okay, yeah.
That's kind of
And
our-
you focus on the PC?
the PC.
Oh, okay.
We're not Switch Gamer.
Yeah.
You'll see the occasional emulation story pop up on PC Gamer.
Okay.
Nice. All
Remember
right.
when
Well,
PC gaming was dead.
I do remember when PC Gamer.
Yeah.
Was dead. It was
Yeah.
around right before I joined PC Gamer. In 2014, which is a scary date for me to throwing out there. But yeah,
Wes, it was dead when I was at Maximum PC in 2004 too.
yeah,
but I mean,
Gordon
that
would have
was kind of
said
the decade, right? Like
Yeah.
2004 into the early 2010s, and then we were kind of on the upswing since then, I think.
I remember 100 years ago, Valve saying, "Hey, do you want to talk to Randy Pitchford? They're doing this new thing with Counter-Strike Condition Zero, where they're going to push patches live from the internet, and you won't have to go to File Planet or File Shack to download them."
Incredible.
And then here we are, 20 years later.
So yeah, it's a good time for PC gaming right now, and has been, I feel like, every year since I joined PC Gamer.
It's been good.
that's how I feel too. But real quick, we're back to we're talking about the game development stuff. Theo, if you don't know Theo, he's our professional
Nice to
game
meet you, Theo.
developer. We found one on the street. He was lucky enough to come stop by. We were talking about optimization. And Willis, it sounds like people. Oh, okay, good. It sounds like optimization is a big thing people are talking a lot about. I was asking Theo here to help explain optimization, because I feel a lot of people throw that around nowadays of like, oh, this game isn't optimized. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like we've talked about this before, but like when Crysis came out and it melted GPUs and you couldn't run it, people were like, oh, this is awesome. But then nowadays, if something comes out, and it's not able to run on their 8-year-old GPU, they're like, this is not optimized. Wes, what is your thoughts on that?
I mean, I feel like there are so many overlapping like issues and frustrations around that. Part of it comes from the fact that a high-end graphics card now costs a lot of money compared to what you were paying, for a PC just a few years ago. Even kind of an entry-level PC, right? If you're not buying, the Steam Deck as your starter PC, you're not building much of a computer for $500 anymore. That is not so much of a thing. So players are really invested from that standpoint. And I think it's just really confusing and hard to tell what the issue is when your game isn't running properly, right? Is it actual lack of optimization? Is it something to do with the game engine that doesn't play nicely with your hardware? Is it, I don't know, just your hardware being too old, right? There's so many variables.
Did you forget to reinstall chipset drivers when you upgraded your CPU, right?
I don't know who
is it,
do that.
is it Windows that's messing you up? There's so many things. So I think a lot of what we see is people lashing out in frustration, like sometimes rightfully so, when their game is stuttering or something else is going on. But there is somewhat that expectation. I think that if you spend $2,000 to $4,000 on a PC, you should be able to put all the sliders all to the way they're right, which isn't always accurate.
Actually, and I got a question about this. Like, I had a thought before we started the show. I was kind of thinking through some of this stuff. I was like, a lot of people, myself included, I'll say that, like, load up a game and put all the sliders to the right and be like, this is awesome. But like these are just names, right? Like nobody wants to play on low because it feels bad, right? But I play on low all the time on my Steam Deck, and like that's usually if I'm on low, I'm like, oh, okay, well it still works good. I'm on a handheld, like it still looks good, kind of thing. Like it's an expectation thing. Like should graphical options actually adopt a little bit more like difficulty options where it's like, oh, normal, and then you got hard, and then you got easy.
Like a
right?
governing body for Ultra.
Should we millennialize? You're saying everybody gets like a participant award? For
No.
the
I'm
base
saying
level?
like right now, and I don't know. Maybe a lot of people in the chat would say this as well. Like you go in and you turn everything up, but you don't do that when you do difficulty option, right? Or I don't know. I feel like most people go into a game, they're like, the difficulty, I'll just choose normal because that's what the developer thinks is the way I intended to play. Could we do that for graphical settings and be like, hey, you know what? The middle option is what we recommend you play at.
Console games are doing that.
Oh, okay.
So I mean,
Oh.
that's like right. Like you get a game on PlayStation or whatever, and it's like, would you like balanced or performance or whatever, right?
Well, should we do
And
that on the
they'll
PC?
They'll use like marketing speak to try and tell you that. Well, I think I find it frustrating to not understand what those options are.
True, yeah.
Well,
But at least it's like, it doesn't feel good to play low settings. Oh, man, I got to play on low settings. Nobody wants to do that,
Do you think
right?
most people notice? Like, I don't think most people look at this. Like, the vast majority of the audience never looks at the settings, right?
On PC, I would say they do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because we're obviously enthusiasts, and I like going through all the bells and whistles. So, yeah, that is a good question. But I feel like on the PC, people go to the PC because they want it to be, one of the best experiences out there. So they love all the bells and whistles. But
I mean, if you look at the most played games, your League of Legends, your Fortnites, your Marvel Rivals right now, those are games people really care about getting their frame rate in, right? So they're at least looking at the settings, maybe to turn everything down to low because they want to hit that 144 FPS even on their laptop, right?
I mean, I think there's
True.
there's a split. There's a competitive and single player split. Like I definitely in my head have, oh yeah, I'm fine with Indiana Jones running at 60 frames a second. Whereas if Fortnite is running at 60 frames a second, I'm just I might as well just not even play.
You're enraged, yeah.
I'm just go get my Switch out.
well, and it's different for on a desktop and a handheld.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's why I think it's weird. And who is it? I don't know how to pronounce your name, but they say graphic settings and their names are completely arbitrary. So it's like, oh, okay. Well, is there a better way to call it from everything from low to what was the one that had the real funny like high end name?
Oh, Supreme was Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones had Supreme. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean?
One that sticks out to me, I think I have the name right in my head, which is in The Witcher 2, they had like an Uber graphics setting. I think they called it Uber. But the idea was when that game came out, it was not meant to run on any existing hardware. Like if you turned that on with the top of the line card at that time, it was going to run like absolute crap because they were trying to forward proof a little bit. And I think that's a good idea. I think games in general have gotten a lot better, at least in like the big budget space of having some tool tips and some details in the settings that kind of tell you what's going on, and that helps you make a slightly more informed choice. But it still is certainly not like an across the board thing where my computer should be able to run high rather than ultra.
Well, here's this like, how about like the Doom setting of like hurt me plenty, right? You're like, you know what, this is gonna hurt your PC. You're turning on path tracing, yeah, it's you're gonna need
a
to
little
do
cartoon graphics card like melting when you turn
but
up
that's
the dial.
fun. I don't know. I think that's the fun part of the PC, and we used to celebrate it with like Crysis, right?
Well,
You know.
but Crysis famously didn't sell particularly well because most people looked at their PCs and they were like, man, I really would love to play that, but there's no way it'll run on my computer, so I'm going to just buy something else instead.
Yeah.
And then everybody... So, Theo, this is a good segue. What's your approach to this as somebody who's like building a game that you're going to ship and then like do you have all the bells and whistles on? Are you going to do full path trace lighting and the whole deal? Or are you like, what's your strategy?
I would like my game to run well on the lowest spec possible. So
Okay. What does the lowest spec possible mean in this case? Do you have a sense of like a 10-year-old machine, a 5-year-old machine, a laptop, a phone,
yeah, no,
a Wii U?
like definitely
A toaster?
definitely like
A potato.
No, like a 7-8-year-old PC.
So like a 1080, 10 series video card.
Yes,
for sure. Yeah.
Like that would be great. Currently, not there because we're in that optimization phase right now of throwing everything away and building things kind of from scratch to see where we land on that. But yeah, the more people you can reach with your game, the better off you are. And hey, guess what? If your game runs on somebody's low spec device, it's gonna hit the expectations of all the way maxed out for more devices.
Enthusiast
right?
crowd.
Yeah. So like I think catering to people is the way to go. Shocker. So things like you see this a lot with even like Next Fest demos. Like people don't have save systems up and running for their 2-hour demo. Like why? Well, people don't have key bindings up and running for letting people customize their controls. There's all these. There are a bunch of things that you need to do to make sure that your experience is going to be good, and it's not game related per se. It's not like your game design loop that you have
It's
to
not stuff you do. It's not stuff you front load in the process.
yeah,
you do it toward the
and
end.
a lot of people don't plan for it. Is
Yeah.
the problem because there's so many things to track.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it makes it muddier when you have to worry about so many different platforms and
Well-
like configurations and all that kind of stuff.
Or sometimes it's just a matter of like you might have your sound contractor come in at the very end, or your UI designer might be somebody who you plan to have come in for the last like 4 months of the process, when you know everything's done and you're not going to have, you're not going to be adding new stuff at that point. It's all going to be determined and
Yeah, and that is the scary part. Like for us, for example, definitely the audio is going to be contracted out, right? And so it's like, what's the impact of that, right? We don't see all the pieces coming together until later.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. I want to talk about consoles now. Before we do move over to there, I do want to remind people that this episode is sponsored by NVIDIA GeForce. Thank you so much, not only for having us in the space, but we got to see a demo, Will, yesterday. Me and you
We saw a bunch of demos.
Yeah, we did, but one particularly was a Half-Life 2 RTX remix.
Mm-hmm.
So you were Maximum PC when Half-Life 2 came out, right?
Yeah, minimum BS is what we call
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I went up to Valve, and I sat down in a very dark room where they kept just dumping pizzas and soda in until we played all of Half-Life 2 in like a 20 or 30 hour period or something.
Well, that actually
And
sounds kind of like fun.
It was it was pretty good. It was real sweaty in that. Like that room was real. It was duded by the end of it.
Okay, but maybe that doesn't sound
But the
like
game
fun.
was great. The
Yeah.
game was incredible, and it was the first time we had seen like real physics in a game, right?
Yeah.
So it was a revolutionary moment for games.
Well, and I've played it plenty. I think have we all played Half-Life 2
Of
here?
course.
Yeah. Okay. Good. We all have our PC card. I learned recently that some people have never played Half-Life 2. And it's just like, oh wow.
Well, they only played the sequels.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, so sometimes it's hard to go back to older games, right? Some people are like, oh, this, it doesn't look good or whatever.
Yeah.
But Half-Life 2 RTX Remix is a community-driven mod. I actually got to interview one of the devs. I have a video going up on PCWorld hopefully tomorrow, so go look for that. But this is essentially taking Half-Life 2 and then remixing it. Like essentially, this isn't like Valve making a remaster. This is like a community of passionate modders using RTX Remix, those tools, to visually enhance the game and kind of like bring it new life. So they didn't touch any of the gameplay because the gameplay is awesome and legendary, but they're bringing the graphical assets up to like modern standards, right?
This is the neat thing that RTX Remix does. It lets you take games that use older graphics APIs like DX9, DX10, 11, I think, up to 11, maybe not 11 yet, and replace individual components. So like you can go in, you load up the game, you load up RTX Remix, and you can pull out and say, okay, I want to replace this wall texture with a higher resolution texture. You can change the way the lighting works. You can do full path trace lighting. You can do volumetric fog and smoke and things like that technologies that didn't exist at the time Half-Life 2 came out in 2004.
And it was all path traced.
And the lighting was all path traced.
And path tracing is obviously like the new big thing that's pushing the all of the graphical stuff forward. It was probably not even on the radar of the devs back in the day.
At that point, we were having conversations like, "Hey, can we generate? Like, we're never gonna have ray tracing on the PC. That's impossible. There's
Right.
no compute. There's not enough compute for that." So the thing that I love about the Half-Life 2 RTX Remix demo that's out now is they've given you access to that dev console. and you can flip on and off the individual settings. So you can see what does what, and you can see, like, if you don't understand what volumetric fog and volumetric lighting is and how that interacts, you can go to a place where there's some smoke and a light and flip that on and off and see it update live as the rays are traced through the materials, and you can see you can actually, like, it gives you a much more tangible way to experience the kind of things that are often buzzword back of box kind of features when we talk about them in relation to specific games.
Yeah, and actually that's what I wanted to focus on in my video, because yes, you can go out and download the Steam demo right now. It's free to download Half-Life 2 RTX Remix. You have to own Half-Life 2 because it's a mod for the game,
Yeah.
so you got to own that. But it's pennies
And
on the
you
dollar.
should.
You should. Yes, definitely do
It's
that.
on sale right now for like $4 probably because Steam sales on.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, so in my video, I wanted to focus on two things. The first was using those developer tools, because you might be comfortable bringing up developer overlays. I'm not. So in the video, I actually had one of the NVIDIA representatives like walk me through those processes. So hopefully, it actually taught me like, okay, what I should toggle. And hopefully the people who are watching the video then will learn also, okay, what to toggle, what to look for, that kind of stuff. And then the second half of the video is interviewing one of the developers and just getting to understand, like, okay, why do this? Like, what did it take to do this? Like, what is your philosophy? All that kind of stuff. So hopefully they'll enjoy the video.
They had an enormous number of people working on this. It was like 150
150
modders,
people over 2 years. Yeah, like all passionate Half-Life 2 fans. So
That's a huge mod team.
yeah, huge.
Really big.
Yeah. So and I think it looks awesome. Like it does breathe new life. I've actually been playing Half-Life 2 on the Steam Deck over the past couple months, because I hadn't played it since they did the Steam Deck update. But now I'm like, oh, okay, well, I should restart with Half-Life 2. Well, this is, just to be fair, or just to be clear, this is a demo. This is only, I think, Ravenholm and Nova Prospect. They haven't released the full game yet. They got this demo out here for the 1.0 release of RTX Remix, because that is now out of beta. And you can go get that. If you want to go learn more about RTX Remix, there's a link down in the description. And thank you again for NVIDIA for sponsoring the episode. But let's move over to the next segment and talk about consoles versus PCs, because
Oh boy.
well, like when I introduced you, Wes, you work at PC Gamer.
Indeed.
And I believe that the PC is the superior place to be. Do I have consoles? Yes, I do as well. But we love the PC. Here's my first question: Do we feel like consoles are holding back the PC? You were talking about making sure everybody could play your game on hardware. Is that because you're trying to target the console?
No way.
No.
The consoles are a nice bonus. I think like you can reach more people for sure by having it go to consoles, but like at the end of the day, just reaching PC players is the primary target, and not everybody can afford the latest and greatest graphics card, right? Some people choose to make their computer last for a little bit longer than others, and they could be potential players for our game. So I think like first and foremost, it's just targeting just PC. First.
I feel like that's rare, right? So I feel like
maybe
everyone's
I'm a weirdo on that front.
Wes, you go ahead.
I don't feel like the consoles hold back PC. I feel like that's an outdated kind of like relationship between the two. 360 era for sure, as that dragged on for a really long time. Like the CPUs and the Xbox 360 especially, PS3 was kind of its own like
PS3 was its own nightmare.
yeah, its own nightmare. But like the CPU power there was really limiting. Maybe you could say like base generation, PS4 was kind of a problematic spec once you got towards the end of that life cycle, whereas the pro consoles were a lot more powerful, right? But I feel like these days, if anything, the consoles are almost like the escape hatch for PC players who are frustrated that they just can't get a hold of a graphics card or feel like they're priced out to some extent, that you can get, a perfectly playable version of practically any game you can get on PC, if it's not specifically a PC exclusive.
I don't know if I'd
on a
call some
console.
of them perfectly playable.
Well, but if you can live with a 30 FPS game, which most people who play on consoles are kind of they're used to, like they want 60, and thanks to the performance modes that a lot of games offer, you can get that now. The might be a little muddy, but you take what you can get if you can't get a card.
I think the common business model in the indie space, at least, is, hey, we're going to launch on PC because that's the easy, like, in terms of getting a game out, there's fewer barriers to you releasing. Like, Steam will let you, your game can barely run. It seems like, yo, man, put it up for whatever you want. We don't care.
Because you're talking about specifically like certification, right?
Yeah, the getting, like, consoles all have requirements about things like localization and cert and accessibility that add
TRC, TCR.
Yeah, exactly. That are for example, it can be these can be things that are really major and have a huge impact, or they can be things that are like if your icon glyphs are too small in relation to the resolution you run at, then that'll fail you on cert. So a lot of times it's a multiple week process. You submit a build, the console publisher looks at it and they're like, okay, here's a list of 30 things you have to fix or 100 things you have to fix.
It's a slow process.
Yeah, and then here's another 700 that are on the it would be nice if you looked at list. And it usually is like I don't know what a flip on a console is these days, but it used to be a couple of weeks sometimes between when you'd submit something and when you'd get your first report back. So you have to start planning that stuff well before. This is why your gone gold date for a game is often 6 weeks before the actual release date, and then you have a big 0 day patch when the game comes out. If it's a simultaneous console and PC release, the much safer thing to do is to build a game, make it successful on Steam, and then when Microsoft and Sony are like, "Hey, man, we'd love to have your game on our platforms," you're like, "Well, okay, we'll write a check, baby," and you roll it out.
Yeah. Also, like the days of subscription service money, those have changed a bit, right? It's you're not going to just get a $5 million thrown at you from a Game Pass deal without being known, if you even want to go for that strategy. Across the board, everyone, at least in kind of like my space, for my kind of studio profile, should be going for PC first and foremost. Really making sure that you're catering to the audience that you're targeting. And then the bonus is the console side, and you can negotiate a better deal also when you have something to prove, like you proven. So yeah.
The other thing is the console players really don't understand early access at all. So like profoundly do not understand early access. So you can have Xbox has had this game preview program for a long time now. And the reviews on game preview games are universally, yo, man, this game's not done. Like, thumbs down, this sucks. And it's
well,
like,
that's the idea.
Yeah,
we
that's the whole
told
point.
you it was. Yeah,
And more rules to it also. Like
Yeah.
There's like minimum amounts of time you have to stay in game preview if you go into it.
Yeah.
There's like all sorts of extra things.
Yeah.
And just like when thinking about a game, like the time and effort needed for it to be a console game, unless it's like just very clearly a design for that, like you're making a game that just like it's like, yes, this is absolutely a Switch game, nothing else. Well, I don't know what that would be, but anyway,
There's waggle on the motion controllers.
Yeah. Just looking from like a market share perspective, half or more of the revenue that you might expect from your game is going to come from Steam, first and foremost. So don't go like you should not be going after the Xbox or PlayStation first,
Pinning your hopes on it.
unless you've got a strategy to go all in, all at the same time, everyone at once. Like, we are a younger studio.
That's
so
a live service. Like if you're making a live service game,
Yeah.
multiplayer game, you might do that.
Yeah.
Or like a huge publisher kind of model you're talking about.
Yeah, but even like wildly successful indies, like Supergiant launched Hades 2 on Steam in early access, and that's the only
on Epic.
Yeah,
Or Hades 1. Sorry,
Hades
it
1 was
Epic.
launched on
Yeah,
Epic in
yeah.
early
And then
access.
Hades 2,
and Hades
Steam.
2 is on like Hades 2 is an enormous juggernaut of a game. The only place you can play it right now is on Steam because they're not doing game preview. They're not doing any of the early access stuff on consoles.
The only couple cases I can think of in the recent past where developers have actually commented on the hardware holding them back console-wise was like I think both Baldur's Gate 3 and Black Myth Wukong were struggling to get things working on the Xbox Series S rather than the X. And for Baldur's Gate, it was their like split screen co-op stuff, and for Wukong, it was probably just the ray tracing or just how like demanding that game was in general. I think they had to hold it back. But I feel like usually it's more the practicalities that you're talking about, right? Of like all the extra time, all the extra effort, hoops, paperwork, blah 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 that you're going through.
Well, what about? I mean, talk about mid-spec, kind of things. Then like the Xbox Series S, like even lower than that is like the Steam Deck, right? I mean, because I feel like a lot of developers now are like, oh, okay, well, hey, the Steam, not only the Steam Deck but other handheld gaming PCs are blowing up. I'm a big fan of them, but like it's a pretty low-powered system ultimately. Like, is that holding PC gaming back? Do you think?
I mean, there's only 3 or 4 million Steam Decks, I think, estimated out there that have sold so far. I think that was the estimated data that someone collected in the last few months, which, I mean, compared to the number of handheld PCs that had been sold before that, that's about 3 or 4 million more.
Yeah.
So it's, that's a really exciting number. I think it's
That's
actually
a growth
great.
market of a lot of percentage.
For sure. But I don't feel like there's anyone looking at that and going, oh God, if our game can't run on the Steam Deck, like, we're screwed. Like, we gotta dial it back. But I could be wrong.
It is a great target though. Like when trying to set a low spec target, like that one is a fantastic one to do, because it does like open up a lot more like options in terms of like how can this be enjoyable on the go? Also, as a practical thing, as a developer, if I can bring my game on a
And
Steam
test
Deck,
it, right?
Well, no, but like even like just like to show it to people, like
Sure,
if I
yeah.
want to do like say a GDC or a Gamescom, having it run on a Steam Deck is just practical for me.
It also gives you sort of a console-esque target to
Yeah.
shoot for, rather
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
like, okay, I want this game to run on a 1070 equivalent GPU from 9 years ago, right? Like, the Steam Deck is a very specific thing that you're like, okay, if it runs on this, great. It's
gonna-
probably going to also run
will
on,
run on
the
the
Windows.
others, yeah.
you know,
Well, PS5
handhelds.
and Xbox Series will be fine if you run well down.
For sure, yeah.
Well, but
Yeah.
I guess what I'm
Switch
getting at,
Yeah.
I guess what I'm getting at is like, but hey, you know what? I have a very expensive, high-powered system. Like that's cool that you're targeting people on the Steam Deck, but does that mean you're then not pushing things forward and like making sure you're using the full capacity of my my huge rig,
Your
right?
5090 with a 9800 X3D in it.
Yeah. Like,
A little buyer's remorse over there.
Rockstar's got your back.
Well, but
No, but I mean,
but
like-
do they really? I mean, they spent $1 billion making that game. It's gonna run, like, if they could release that on the Xbox 360, they probably would.
They might. No.
Yeah.
No, I would say, like, again, it's where and whenever it makes sense to do that, then yes. Like, obviously we want our game to look the best and be the best possible, but we're not going to be chasing something that doesn't make sense for our game, right? So
okay.
it's a like some indie devs will have a vision that is like going to be super cool because you have like the ultimate rig, right? Like, what is that? Tear down?
Tear down the voxel game.
Yeah. Like a game like that where like the design of it is like
We're gonna
Built to
light your
melt
CPU
stuff.
on fire.
built
Yeah.
to melt your computer
Yeah.
down. Like, that's awesome, right? And then
I think that's fun.
yeah, no, and like we need those games to fill that need for for enthusiasts to get the most out of their rig, right?
I think one thing the Steam Deck has actually reminded me of, or pushed me to be a little more conscious of as someone who likes to play games, is sort of letting go of the mode of like, I'm going to play either everything sitting at my desk on my PC, or I'm going to play a console game on the console. I'm now much more thinking about just like, what is the experience I want to have with this game, right? And like, there are some games that I could play at my desktop and they will look better and run faster than they will on the Steam Deck, but I don't care. I would rather be lounging like in a reclining chair playing that game on the Steam Deck, even though I'm making somewhat of a trade-off, because the thing I value in that game is just like the more casual experience, right? That's not for a first-person shooter for me, but there's a lot of games where I go, okay, no, I want to play it on the Steam Deck. That might even be like an old retro console game that I'm emulating on the Steam Deck that I originally would have played on a TV, but because that game now looks really bad on a modern flat screen TV, it's nice to have it on, a small 7-inch screen.
Yeah.
I played a ton of Indiana Jones streamed from my my giant gaming PC in the other room to the Steam Deck in the living room, and it was a great experience. Like I made some resolution sacrifices, but I was hanging out in the living room and I was watching a football game or watching a basketball game or something, and like it was a wonderful, like it was the best of both worlds for me, right?
And that's a great example because I actually did the opposite of that, and I hooked my gaming PC into my TV to play Indiana Jones on the TV because I started it up on my desktop and I have like a 27-inch 1440p monitor, perfectly fine, but playing that on the desktop for like a few minutes, it just like didn't feel right. I'm like, Indiana Jones is this, it is a movie for me. It is a cinematic thing, and the game looks so good, and the performances were so good. Like I had low expectations of Troy Baker being able to do Harrison Ford and not feel like a caricature of this, voice that I've known since I was 5 years old or whatever. And he absolutely crushed it. The motion capture in the game crushed it. It has this weird, like slightly bumbling humanity to it that I think most video games don't have. Most video games are a little more like power fantasy.
It's really expensive, it turns out.
Yeah.
to do the like a lot of hand-on animations there.
And so I was just like, I want this on my TV at the highest possible fidelity that I can get it. But you had a great time playing on the Steam Deck, and that's totally valid.
Well, I mean, you're right. It definitely does depend on the game and the experience, right? Like I love handheld gaming, but shout out to the Cyberpunk devs for adding an actual Steam Deck preset because it does run pretty well on a Steam Deck, but that's not where I want to play it. I want to play it, on my TV. I actually have my gaming PC is hooked up to my TV. I want to see path tracing. I want to see all those bells and whistles. So like, yeah.
So I mean, this is taking me back to before I went indie and I was working, at Ubisoft, and it was like I was building Rainbow Six Siege for mobile, right? And there was a lot of questions about like who was playing this game, and it's like the form factor of that game. Like oftentimes just because you're a fan of Siege, right, on PC, doesn't mean you're gonna be a fan of Siege on mobile.
On your phone.
Because maybe on mobile you're gonna want to play, I don't know, Hearthstone or something else, like a different genre. Like people will want to play different types of games on the PC or on the couch, on the TV,
Different contexts,
yeah. And it's different for each person, and you might have some trends that you can follow, right? But yeah, like it you have to like be aware of that as well, right?
Okay.
I think there's another side of this too, is that there's the thing that's happened in the last few years. We've seen it starting with the AI upscaling features like DLSS that came on, and those are things that actually I think everybody is doing. Like, the hardware vendors have done, like NVIDIA led with this early on by making that DLSS plugin for the second gen of DLSS like a half day of engineering implementation, and that it actually took longer for most people to do the UI wiring for it than it did to actually get the plugin integrated if you were on the right version of UE. And that stuff has opened up a ton of performance options for a huge range. Like if you're talking about DLSS, it's from like 20 series to whatever cards that shipped last week. We'll see a performance boost and better upscaling and like better image fidelity in a lot of cases. So I think we'll see more features like that as across the whole range of games, from this super small targeted indie stuff. The thing you don't want to do is if you're making a game that's for a specific niche, you don't want to cut off a big chunk of that niche by making it a 5080 and higher game like Crysis did. Like we all learned the Crysis lesson 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has kept me energized working at PC Gamer for so long is just watching PC gaming come to encompass practically everything. Like growing up, to me, PC gaming was like RTS games and like FPS, right? It was like strategy and like sim
and Doom
strategy.
And Quake.
Yeah. And now, like when I started PC Gamer, actually, I think it was shortly before I'd started, they had awarded Spelunky Game of the Year. I think Spelunky came out in 2013, if I'm getting that right, at least on PC. And there were like people who gave them grief for giving this like console game of the year, right? And to me, Spelunky is like such a game that embodies the PC, because it's this really simulation heavy game where all these like crazy emergent things can happen. That is a PC game, right? And now I feel like you barely have like any games that people look at and go, that's a console game, that's not a PC game, or vice versa. It's just like the PC can be whatever you want it to be. It can be a Steam Deck where you're playing Balatro instead of sleeping, or it can be
You were looking right at me when you said that.
Your 5090 game.
Well, like Inkle released a new game the other day that's like a narrative. It's like a narrative fiction game that just has a really nice UI on top of it, and it's really clever and it has like a bazillion. It's called Expelled.
Expelled, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like they're the people that made 80 Days and Overboard, I think.
Correct. Yep.
And like that's a PC game. I mean, I play it on my phone and I play it on my Steam Deck. I'm probably never going to install that on my main PC, but like PC, you're absolutely right. It's way more like PC gaming has expanded.
Yeah,
dramatically.
for sure.
So and you feel like it's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, Steam just hit a new high player peak 2 weeks ago, and then again like a week ago. I think Steam is still growing. It's still huge.
1 billion players.
I think it was like 40 million concurrents or something like that online. Huge numbers of people still playing PC games. We do definitely have some growing pains in the high end hardware space, which is maybe what you were alluding to, and like how hard it is to get cards right now, right? And I think we're seeing like a very small percentage of players who are particularly frustrated that either they just can't get their hands on that hardware at all, or that they're not getting the experience they expect from their games. Like a punching bag the last couple of years has been Jedi Survivor, right, where the Unreal Engine version of that game runs much better on console than it does on PC for some very specific kind of like nagging, stuttering issues that despite a bunch of patches, they just haven't been able to iron out. And like, I get why you would be frustrated if you spent $3,000 building a PC and this game runs fine most of the time, but like every 30 seconds you get this single stutter, right? It's
Well, usually that's the great thing about the PC is that you can spend more money to brute force past
that problem. Yeah.
You just need to overclock a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we've been
hit
in
the jumper.
Sort of like a tricky transitional period, maybe because of the new consoles. Like I can't diagnose it, and I'm sure there are different problems for different games where even though the hardware is there to deliver on that performance, for whatever various reasons, be it the game engine or developers just having to do a lot more low-level programming maybe than they had to do the generation before, you just hit some of those bumps where the PC game experience is worse than the console experience, and that's frustrating.
I was going to say, this is often one of those things that you'll find late in the process, and you'll be like, oh, there's a fix for this. It's in the next version of Unreal, so we have to update our version of Unreal to the next point release. But also, your audio middleware and your physics middleware are on a different, don't have updates for that, or maybe you made a questionable choice and modified some core engine code, and then you have to backport.
Oh, don't do that.
No, don't do that. No, it's a bad. Like they're like, hey man, we'll give you a license. You can change the Unreal source code. No, don't do that.
Pay this extra money to be totally.
To hose yourself. It's like just kicking yourself in the future you. It's just you're teeing him up, kicking him square in the groin.
Hoisted. Yeah.
So, but that stuff happens all the time, and probably somebody was building making graphics choices based on what the consoles were able to do, because they have these weird unified memory architectures that PCs don't. The bottlenecks are all screwed up and in different places, and it changes. Like, I don't know what the actual problem is on Fallen Survivor.
Jedi
Survivor, yeah. But like that stuff happens, and usually by the time you realize it's a problem, it's way too late to change it, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then you have some developers who just have technology they've been using for a long time, and like they do improve it, but they can kind of just get away with the problems. Like, I'm a huge From Software fan. Like, I love all the Souls games, Elden Ring, etc. Those games always have messy issues on PC and like do not run as well as they should.
They just lock to 30 hertz. It's what the PC kids crave.
Yeah, your eyes can't see more than 30.
I think Elden Ring actually ran more smoothly on the Steam Deck than it did on a high-end PC because doing the Proton conversion, they like compile all the shaders, right? And they don't do that for the PC version of the game, the Windows version. So you would run into these weird stutters even on a really high-end rig. And like the Steam Deck could only run it at 30 FPS, but it was a smooth 30 FPS.
Smooth 30, yeah.
So, you run into those kind of issues, and there are players who are really upset that From Software has sold a bajillion copies of their games and hasn't gone all in on like making the PC version run as well as it possibly can, right? And updating that tech. But clearly they have other priorities, and you know that can be a little annoying, but like it's working for them. So
All right. Well,
Also,
I mean,
the region where they're at, also like developers over there
Yeah.
didn't, prioritize PC games
Totally.
for a long time.
they're
It's
really
changing. It's
they're
changing.
really still in that kind of growth phase of
Yeah.
10 years ago, not a thing at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
So they've come a long way in
Yeah.
that amount of time.
Well, I mean, one of the things that Gordon always talked about was just how consoles are coming for the PC. He always felt like just always just so scared and personally attacked. He's like, they're coming for us. They're trying to take us down. PC gaming is dead. No, it's not.
He used to have a running tally of how much money Microsoft had spent on Xbox before they made their money back. And then once they made their money back, he had to drop that one.
Yeah. But I mean, do we feel like the console is coming for the PC?
No.
No.
I think it's actually the opposite. I think Microsoft is going the opposite way and basically going all in on PC. Their new marketing campaign.
This is an Xbox, I heard.
Yeah, everything
yeah.
is an Xbox.
That's
this,
an Xbox.
This
right
water
there.
bottle is,
Yeah.
is an Xbox, right? So I think we're going to see them moving more into the software space where they're kind of just interested in publishing their games wherever people will buy them. And, they'll probably still have a hardware platform that they sell. They'll maybe do the home console. Maybe they'll really go in on the handheld market and like make their own handheld in addition to partners. I don't know. But I think we're getting closer and closer to the point where there's PCs and then there's Nintendos. And I guess there's probably still PlayStations. I don't know that Sony is going to ever really give up the power of that as a standalone thing.
No way.
But I feel like Microsoft is sort of surrendering, but also acknowledging like we're Windows. But
Yeah,
I-
but it's like that was never the plan, right?
yeah.
They were gunning for
sure they
taking
were.
over, right? It's just like it's funny because Sony had such a they fought tooth and nail to stop the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, and it was that acquisition that killed their console play.
Yeah.
It was that like right there because the market turned at the same time that they spent all that money, and they had to switch from growth to revenue,
Yeah.
right?
That tracks for me.
The thing on the console side though is also I think when you look at how people, yes, there are absolutely people who are PC gamers or Xbox gamers or PlayStation gamers, but like I can play all of the Xbox first party games on my PC. I can play all of the PlayStation first party games except for Astrobot, which maybe is going to come eventually to
It'll
PC.
come. Yeah.
On my PC, and now you can just choose to play where you want to play, which is nice. It's a much easier world. Like I would love to see a Steam Deck, a streaming app on my Xbox Series S that's sitting in the living room, so I can stream easier than I do right now to my living room. And I would love to get that on my Switch, right? I'd love for everybody to talk to everybody at the end of the day. I like to bring people together.
Yeah.
Adam.
So generous.
Oh, good.
Will.
Yeah,
That's
what I
good.
do.
Yeah. That's why we keep you around.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, but at the end of the day, it sounds like we won. Right?
I mean, you can say that if that makes you feel happy.
Okay.
If that makes you feel like a
That
big
makes
man,
me
go
feel
for
good.
it.
No,
Yeah,
I mean
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, like it's boiled down to PC games are basically it. With Nintendo doing their Nintendo things, right?
Yeah.
Nobody really sells games on the Switch if they're not Nintendo.
We're not going to see Super Mario World 2 on the PC on Steam. I don't think.
Yeah.
Not yet anyway.
yet.
Yeah, Nintendo's going to have to be in a really different position
Yeah.
than they are, and I think with their theme park business and the Mario movie making $1.something billion, like
Yeah.
they're doing okay.
They're fine.
And
Nice.
then and like you said earlier, like Sony is gonna have all their games on PC as well. It's just like a little bit later than launch.
I think the week that Sony announced that they were going to start putting their games on PC, 5-6 years ago or something. I think that week we ran an editorial on PC Gamer that was like, well, I guess we won the console war, and it feels like that has proven to be true over the last few years.
And I mean, part of it is that the cost of making a big AAA game has just ballooned so much that they can't afford to say, no, we're not going to sell this game. If there's people on PC who want to play this PlayStation 5 game, we're not going to not sell it to them. That would be incredibly foolish and irresponsible to our shareholders. And as we all know, the most important thing you can do as a company is keep the shareholders happy.
Well, and now we're hitting sort of a like a secondary frustration to that, which is with tariffs in the United States driving the price of things up like to ridiculous degrees.
Everything.
You know, even if game developers could afford to only release their game on one platform, there are just going to be fewer people spending that extra money to buy that thing. So you have to go where people are, right? And a lot of times that might mean go to their 6-year-old laptop or something. You know, I don't know, go to their Xbox that they already have. They're not going to buy the Xbox Series X Pro or whatever because it's going to cost too much. You know?
Don't have to pay
Who knows?
tariffs on your Xbox Cloud game stream hardware.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. All good discussions. But we need to move over to Q&A so we can wrap up and get out of here. Only got time for a couple, so I pulled a couple of older ones from the chat. Robert Lawrence, friend of the show, Robert Lawrence asks, can Unreal Engine 5 manage a massive amount of placeable objects like Creation Engine, where you can drop a lot of things anywhere in the environment and come back many hours later and it'll still be there?
Like wheels of cheese or potatoes, I think was the Starfield of choice, item of choice.
Which sounds like fun. I don't know if
is it
we're
possible?
Unreal Engine 5 experts here, but you know.
I would usually ask programmers on the team that, but I don't see why not. Like just having a bunch of placeable assets and get back to them. Depends on what you're trying to do. In addition,
You're
to
probably
that.
trying to mess around, yeah.
Like in addition
funny.
to that, like what else is the game? You know what I mean? Like if the game is just hoard a bunch of wheels of cheese.
Somebody should make that.
Well, I mean, a lot of that stuff, a lot of times stuff like that goes away because of, in the old days at least, because of memory constraints. Because the Xbox 360 had 512 megabytes of RAM or something shared between the GPU and the CPU. Mm-hmm. And like as soon as you looked away from something that was on the ground, a body that was on the ground in Mass Effect, that person would dissolve and just turn into a box because the boxes were cheap to render and took up no space in RAM, and the people and the poses and all that took space. So like I think
like we definitely have a performance hit when because we don't currently clear out stuff, and there's like infinite stuff to chop down in our game, and you know, like twigs and branches and blah blah blah. So like we're gonna have to sort that out because it's not ideal when you go through like a portal and come back and then you're like, oh okay, here are like 900 things I left on the ground, which, you know. But it runs, but also I've got like 64 gigs of RAM on my PC and a 30, you know, like it's not going to be ideal.
On the Anacrusis, we had it's a first-person shooter, and we had gun spawners that were on the wall that would just spawn an infinite number of guns. Now, like we had a category of bug that we labeled lovable jank, so it was things that were bad and we should probably fix, but they were fun, right? Yeah. And one of them was, you could stand in front of the gun spawner, and every time you would spawn a new gun, it would drop the old one out of your inventory. So there's a certain type of tester who would have the entire starting area of the game filled to the ceiling with guns. And that's hilarious. But then somebody loaded in on an Xbox One, and they just immediately crashed and like had to reboot the game. So like
which is again totally fine.
Yeah,
it's like
look, they're getting what they paid
for lovable jank.
Yeah,
like and that, you know that's
kind of fun.
A lot of discussions internally about like what can or can't we do, and like every single time it's like if this is fun and someone's gonna enjoy it, and clearly it's not like golden path expectation of how to play the game.
Yeah,
let people make their own choices.
Let them make their own fun. Yeah.
It's a much older Unreal tech, but Killing Floor 2, I think, was based on Unreal Engine 3.5, and that had a setting in the graphics where you could turn up like body remnants basically, and so you would go through a level and you would have killed, you know, hundreds of Zeds by the end of it, and there would still just be corpses just all over the place.
We did that with like if you had 64 gigs of memory, you could turn it all the way up, and like nothing would ever despawn.
So I feel like
kind of fun.
UE5 can probably do that, but who knows what point it hits bad performance.
Well, friend of the show, Ivan R. asked a question, is the PlayStation dev kit a must for game development? How affordable is it for an indie studio? I mean, it sounds like...
Yeah, so like... I showed
any dev kit, I guess.
I don't know what the standard process is for everyone else. I can only speak to my own experience. But yeah, like for us, I just showed the game to PlayStation at some point. Like I think it was like Gamescom a year and a half ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And they're like, cool. Not like, wow, cool, but like cool.
Yeah.
And
Casually, cautiously
yeah,
enthusiastic.
like, they're like, it's early. Let's like keep in touch. So they connected me to a rep, and they sent me a dev kit, and so like I didn't have to pay for it. And, it's as easy as finding the right person with something to show and being like, not currently my priority, but would love to start looking to see what we need to do to make it run.
But by the time you got to the point that they would reach out, that they would take your meeting,
Yeah.
your request for a meeting,
Yeah.
you had been on Next Fest and had a bunch of wish lists, presumably, and stuff like that, and had a little bit
So
of
we haven't
buzz
done
on the
we
game.
haven't done Next
Oh, you
Fest
haven't done
yet.
Next Fest yet. Okay.
No. Well, yeah, I mean we did a trailer, and got a few views on that, and then had basically
Like a demo.
almost a tech demo, really. And that was enough to at least get conversations going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and it's not like the old days where you used to have to spend $100,000 and buy 10 dev kits and a bunch of test kits and all that stuff.
No, it's basically free.
They understand how it works if they think your game is promising.
Don't need a $300,000 workstation anymore to render your
Look,
your
you got to
polygons.
get an SGI02, okay, and the one person in the world who knows how to work that thing.
Nice. Well, here's something you briefly touched on, but a friend of the show, Cause MC, asks, art design versus realism. Have we pushed the realism uncanny valley to the detriment of performance? Like you mentioned, that you're kind of like saying, hey, you know what, you can maybe scale back to have something a little more stylized. Like, do you actually feel like pushing that boundary of realism is?
We started with the like more realistic path,
Mhm.
and at one point switched to more stylistic.
Mm-hmm.
We still have people that saw the game initially that will give me a little bit of lip about how they don't appreciate the change.
More like Zelda, am I right?
Yeah.
What
Sorry.
like for us, it wasn't so much
Deep
about
cut.
uncanny valley as it was of like feeling like we were going into generic town. Right. So because like a lot of people all of a sudden jumped on like the meta-human bandwagon, and so like they all look the same. And we didn't feel like we had like it had good production values, but I thought, but it was like we maybe didn't have the skill set to push it into a zone where we could have our own style with it. And because we're a sci-fi game, so it wasn't ever going to be purely like realistic, right? So that's problem A, and problem B is when going with a more grounded style in terms of graphical look, it's harder to be more creative with some of the designs of what's happening in the world without totally busting your budget.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and like I think about like a game like Okami, right, which is a painterly platformer from
the style meter all the way to
like
to one
beautiful.
end. Yeah.
bars all the way
paintbrush.
over. Yeah, paintbrush. And like that game, would that game have worked in a realistic fashion? I mean, maybe, but it's like I think about that game because of the style. It's lived rent free in my head for 15 years because the style was incredible, even at a time when the hardware was pretty underwhelming. Because it was a I think it was a PS2 or
game.
PS3. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
PS2.
Yeah. So like you often. Like if you have a team that's capable of doing something that's stylized and looks cool and is coherent and neat, like I think about like PUBG and Fortnite, right? So PUBG has some dudes in armor. It looks like every dude in every video game ever, except for you can put a hot dog costume on them and like then go out and murder 99 other people.
You can do that in PUBG?
PUBG Mobile, real PUBG.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I was like,
slightly
wow.
less.
Huh, I had no idea.
They have like mascot. They have bears and sharks and stuff. But then you look at Fortnite, and they've used style choices to coherently bring in Marvel and Star Wars and Lara Croft and John Halo and John
Terminator.
Wick and Gerald from The Witcher and like all these different characters. And it's not always perfect, but it works in a way that's like weirdly compelling for millions of people.
Lovable
every day.
jank.
Yeah. I mean,
It's not jank, but
it's not. I think it's really hyper polished, in a way that often if you hyper polish something, it ends up kind of bland. And they picked a style. They made style choices that make it feel alive.
They made a good choice with that one.
Yeah.
I think there's also an important consideration between not just stylization and realism, but the expectations that those things kind of bring along with them, right?
Yeah.
Like I've played games where it's made by a relatively small team, but they're really shooting for high fidelity graphics, maybe not realistic, but like Dark Tide comes to mind, Warhammer 40K Dark Tide. I really, really, really liked that game. When it came out, they were pretty limited in what they had at launch in terms of like their narrative was kind of threadbare. They were a little bit short on like level variety and stuff like that, but the game looked phenomenal. And I think the average player who comes into that game is looking at it and they're like, this is a AAA video game with a huge budget because it looks so good. It kind of sells the image of being this huge big budget game. Not that big a team making that game, actually. And so I think the expectations were a little mismatched with the reality of what they were able to deliver.
And that's actually a huge problem that I've seen with a lot of peers. When like you want to like impress, right? You've got the trailer, you're going bombastic. Look at this cool USP that I have with this game, right? Like you've never seen this feature in this way, in this style before. And then you'll attract people that are expecting then to have all of the bells and whistles that you'd have from a AAA title with that budget. And those Steam reviews are going to go down to the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had presented it with to set expectations in a different way, that very same game marketed to players in a different way might be an 85 or a 90.
Yeah.
And as soon as you go into that mixed or low rating,
You're in trouble.
like then that's one more like Studio X closed down headline. So like you have to be super careful about who you are making this game for and how you present that work.
Yeah.
And so that plays into it.
And I've said this before here, but people, it's easy to say, people sit back and they're like, oh, lazy devs do this, lazy devs do that. No one, like, this isn't a job you do because it's easy, right? This isn't a job you do because you're like, oh man, I really hate seeing my family and I love working 80 hours a week. This is a job you do because you really love making games, and nobody sets out and is like, man, I'm going to make a game that really screws over everybody who buys this game in early access. Sometimes you release a game and nobody ends up playing it, and you're like, well, we got to go on to the next thing, or we're going to have to shut the whole studio down. And the goal is always to make the next game. You don't want to. Nobody wants to be a one and done indie studio. You want to release your game and do well enough that you can sign a deal for the second game, and then make that game good enough that you can sign a deal for the third game. And along the way, you learn how you and your team like to make games, and like how you work best, and what kind of games you should be making. And like it's really, really rare for a studio to do that on the first. Like I think about Supergiant a lot, because Bastion came out in kind of what we thought were the late days of it in indie gaming, but we're
So
really
good.
early still. Yeah, and it was an incredible game, and it sold, but it wasn't like an industry changing franchise, giant franchise game. It took them Bastion and Transistor and Pyre, and then Hades came out, and they changed markets with Hades.
Yeah.
But that was a 10-year, 12-year process for them, and it took that long for them to figure out how they were working together, and what kind of games they wanted to make, and how to build these really intercomplicated systems they'd been kind of hinting at for a long time, and package it in a way that like normal people would pick that game up and be like, oh man, I love Aphrodite perks.
One of the biggest PC games of, I think last year is when it came out, Lethal Company,
Yeah.
co-op game. The creator's quite young and had made like 30 games before making Lethal Company. I think most of them in Roblox.
Yeah.
And it, that you keep iterating, you keep practicing, you're going to get better. But I'm sure by the time they got to Lethal Company, they also had a much more honed sense of like who they were making this game for and where it could be janky, and that was okay because it actually added to the humor and like the feeling of that game in the way they
you
wanted
get a
it to.
feel for what works, what doesn't, what people say, like what hit well, what didn't hit well, what your own assumptions were, what like all that stuff plays into it.
Yeah.
So like teams that stick together for a long time, or teams that work on kind of like the same style of game, many like over and over again, they're going to hone that in.
Yeah. And that's what's been one of the saddest things about seeing the waves
Yeah.
of layoffs in the games industry is the last few years is like, yeah, of course you feel bad for each individual person who's lost their job, but also even if those people do manage to go land another job, like how much kind of combined team skill and expertise and experience have you just thrown away from those people, you know, getting just jettisoned out of these studios, or these studios getting closed altogether, that together they could have made another great thing that was, you know, better than their last thing.
Well, and we hit on this to bring it full circle back to the very beginning. Every studio has a slightly different pipeline, right? So it's not like the people who are getting laid off from Mountaintop last week, not to pick on Mountaintop, but are like there's an onboarding process that means you have to learn how your new job's pipeline works and which tools they're using. And like you may be really great at Maya, but now people are using Blender as their last step in the animation pipeline before you get injected into the game engine you're using. So there's like it takes, while the skills are transferable, it's not always it's not like, hey, I know how to work the mill at a car manufacturer, where it's the same, you know, the mill's the same and you just have to learn how to make the different part. It's always different from studio to studio.
And there's also the cultural aspects.
Yes.
Like some studios are very light on the administrative touch. Others are quite micromanagey, right? Some are producer heavy, some are creative heavy. The way in which people work, like how often are people meeting together? Where are they meeting? Like all that stuff also plays into like how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Remote versus in person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Nice.
hybrid. Yeah, a lot of hybrids.
All right. Well, I guess we we need to keep practicing being podcasters. Maybe one day we'll figure it out and hit our
Maybe
Hades
fifth or
of the
sixth-
podcast.
sixth-
Yeah.
fifth or sixth podcast.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, we should get out of here. Lots of great discussions, lots of great questions, but we're running up on time, so we got to get out of here. But before I do, I want to thank everyone for showing up. Check back next week for your fix of PC Talk here on the Full Nerd. If you want to listen to us on the go, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Deezer, anywhere you can port your RSS feed to. Then hopefully we will be there. And every time if you can leave us a review, some sort of thumbs up, star rating, something like that, that'd be nice. Every time you do, an indie dev gets more funding. So
That's true.
Yeah, there you go.
That's exactly how it
Yeah.
works.
Theo, where can people find your stuff?
Yeah, please. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
We're on Steam. We have a page up there. You can sign up to be part of our next playtest, which I don't know exactly when that's going to be, but I'm thinking probably in the summer.
Well, what's the game?
The Signal.
The
is
Signal.
is the name of the game. So you can find it on Steam. Just to look up The Signal. It's a open world survival craft game with some extraction shooter mechanics, going for uncovering the mystery on this alien planet. Narrative driven, and you can make your custom vehicles as you explore, and it's our own little game that we're trying to make. So
If you see a game on Steam you like, mash the wishlist button, because
Yes.
it's the kindest thing you
For-
can do for an unreleased game.
and the follow button
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Mm.
Wishlist will get you notified whenever you have two things happen: A, when the demo gets pushed live; B, when the game is out for sale. Those are the two times that wishlist works. Follow will get you updates on whenever the developer has an actual update to put in the discussion section.
Oh, nice.
So it depends on how we'll also wishlist
And give you sales and stuff like
for
that
the sales
too,
as
yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about
Yeah.
the funnel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
And Wes, thank you for being on.
Yeah, my
Where
pleasure.
are you?
Thanks for
Where
having me.
can people find you?
Where am I?
never even-
I'm in San Francisco. You might
Oh.
spot me on the
Oh,
streets.
so just come find Wes.
sometime before or after GDC. No, you can find me at PCGamer.com. PC Gamer Magazine. We still make one of those.
Wait, physical?
Wow,
Physical
really?
magazine. I believe we're the last surviving gaming magazine in America
Dang,
now that is
no
still
way.
published in the
Wow.
States. RIP Game Informer, although I saw some Game Informer editors
I did see that,
tweeting mysterious things today.
like a
So
tease.
maybe
Ooh.
Game Informer's coming back. I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, PC Gamer Magazine still exists. You can find me on Blue Sky. Search my name. You'll find me on there.
Nice. Fenlon, F-E.
Yes, my handle's wes.readonlymemo.com. I have one of those
Oh,
custom
yes.
domain handles.
By the way,
Yeah.
thank you for mentioning that, because Read Only Memo, one of the best newsletters that I get in my email box, apart from next.content.town. But
Thanks.
yeah, no,
Thank you very much. Thank
I do read every single one of those. So
That's awesome.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Keep up that good work.
Read only memo is great if you want to keep up with what's going on in emulation. And
That's
Wes
my
does a-
little
what,
side project.
Twice
yeah.
monthly, I think.
Yeah, every 2 weeks. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's really good.
Why
Really
not every 2 days? Why not?
You know, it's a lot of work.
No, it's awesome. Yeah. So thank you, Wes. Thank you, Theo. Thank you, Will, for
Always a
bringing
pleasure,
your
sir.
insights and your lovely voice to the table. Thank you, Willis, for controlling verticals horizontals. I realized once again I did not intro you at the beginning, so I'm so sorry. So sorry. Yeah, and also we have one Jeff from Craft Computing. Come on over. Say hi.
Hello.
He wasn't on the show.
Hello, hello.
Yeah. Wanted to thank you for showing up.
We-
Also, chips and cheese. No. Yeah. George, what's going on? Sorry, the light was in front of you. I think it's George. So yeah, we got the full crew here. Everyone's
Even more nerds.
even more nerds. We had a live studio
And
audience
endless
that
supply of
doesn't
nerds
happen.
just out the street too.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's nerds everywhere.
Nice. So it is a party.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you brought some beer.
I'm fresh out.
Okay, well,
Oh.
then it's not a party.
We're gonna have to fix that.
All right, we're going to have to fix that. Raphael says, as always, I'm Jeff. Said, yeah.
That's my line.
Anyway, we're going to get out of here. Thanks, everybody. Check back next week. The Full Nerd. Thanks, everybody. Thank you again to NVIDIA for sponsoring us and having us. As always, I'm Adam.
That doesn't work as well.
Dang it.